Hello, my name is Owen. Today I will be doing my entire Malazan Book of the Fallen spoilers review for the entire series of Deadhouse Gates. We're going to be looking at like the foreshadowing in this book, things that hinted at for future books, and just in general have an open discussion, right? Because as you know, if you follow my weekly series or you watch my last recap video of Gardens of the Moon for the entire spoiler series, so just in mind, if you haven't read the books past Deadhouse Gates, get out of here. Get out of here. Scram. But I need these videos just to like coalesce my thoughts and how like the pieces are fitting in my mind for like the bigger narrative. And also because you guys know so much more than about me about the specific stuff. You help, like you correct me, give me guidance on things that I'm wrong on, or also just point out things that I'm missing. Because we know the series, it's insane. It's crazy. There's so much stuff going on that I can make a 3-hour-long video and still don't talk about everything that I want to talk about. So what I'm going to do today is just, I got a list of like basically bullet point quick things that are like unrelated, just things that I noticed that I marked as I read the book. And then we're going to end with like the series-wide goals of the book, obviously that being of the crippled god and freeing and Mercy killing the crippled god, and how that like narrative goal at the end of the series like is shown in this series at all. So we're going to start like specific stuff and then get to like that big series-wide goal. I think it worked pretty well for my first video. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed talking about it. I enjoyed finding the connections from the first book to the last book. And I think there's definitely some hardcore connections here as well. I think there's even, like on paper, even less connections to the crippled god in this book. But the stuff that's there is quite telling, in my opinion. And if you know what to look out for, I think it's very, very telling. So let's just get the small things out of the way. The first thing I noticed, which is kind of an observation and also / a question, very early on in the book, they mentioned that the Paran family's dad passed away around the same time that our boy Paran disappeared, which makes like the implication that when he was resurrected from being assassinated by Sari, that there was like an exchange of lives, right? That instead of Paran dying, it was his father that died. And because his father died, that started like the chain reaction of Tavor and Felicien getting into an argument and not being very close anymore, because Felicien says in this book that they had an argument, a huge argument before the falling out, which obviously leads to eventually war between the two of them as heads of their respective armies. But it's kind of interesting, another look into like how death in Malazan works. It's like, oh, it's never permanent, but also it always comes at a price of some kind. So it seems like the price of Paran coming back to, at least in my estimation, if this is wrong, please let me know. But it seems like in my estimation, the cost of Paran's life was at the death of his father and possibly his other, like his mom too, because I'm pretty sure she wasn't dead before he was resurrected. I don't know, just a thought I had, and that was very early on in the book. That was like one of my first marks, or my first like series-wide spoiler marks, that is. The other thing that we run into that comes into play later in the series is stuff like the Spirit Walker and the Bridge Burner song. I remember when I was reading House of Chains for the first time, I'm like, what is this song, man? The Bridge Burner ghosts are coming out of nowhere. They Deus Ex Machina the whole fight, and there's not even a battle. It's so like anticlimactic. I don't get it. Like I vaguely remember a Spirit Walker song being mentioned in this book, but I don't remember how it plays into it. And then I read that scene the first time, and I'm like, okay, he says he has to touch him. He didn't touch him. Why does he get the song? I was so confused. Then at the end of the book, Mappo's like, when he uses like the conch cell, he's like, he definitely touched you. He's like, no, he didn't. He didn't touch me. And I'm like, wait a minute. If Mappo says he touched him, he definitely was touched. And I went back, and like as he's leaving, he just gives a sly like, all right, enjoy yourself on the way out. Like he puts his hand on his shoulder, and it's so slipperily slipped into there that you could easily miss it, like I did twice apparently. So that's like the jumping off point to like obviously like making his conch powerful, but also like starting this song of the Bridge Burners, which was like their history and their ghosts to rise from the deserts of the 7 cities and like save the day. So I feel like it's a little bit of a long payoff, doesn't come for a couple books, but I think it makes it a lot better knowing that it all started in this moment. So that's a little bit more of an obvious one. The other obvious one, if you read the series, is the introduction of our boy, Karsa Orlong. I remember the first time I read Deadhouse Gates, I'm like, who is this Toblakai idiot coming in, threatening my boy Hebrick the entire time, just being combative in general. And it's like Erickson gives us so many ultra specific details about this random sidekick of Leoman, who's actually cool. He's like, oh, he's moody, he wants to kill Hebrick. Oh, he's tortured by his past. Obviously, we don't know. That's Karsa Orlong. We don't know that we'll get to know his backstory. We don't know how he got there. We don't know yet that he's the one that slaughtered all those guys in the Salanda. He's the one that carries that big-ass spear that everyone says is too big for it to be Barghast. And when he's tortured by his past, he's literally carrying around the ghosts of his old buddies and the people that he's slaughtered. So he's just cool. And also there's like the prophecy moment where it says he's of pure faith, but one day he'll lose it all, which like foreshadows his character arc. And like at the time we're like, okay, this is a character I don't care about. I don't care if he has faith. I don't care what he believes in. I don't even know what he believes in. I don't even care. He doesn't even have a name. And then we learn eventually that he's going to be a major player, not even only in this series, but there's going to be another series of books that are about his journey and completing his journey. And I took his loss of faith being like the whole, like, I'm going to destroy civilization, and he kind of switches into, like, I'm just going to, like, remake civilization into a way that's not as, like, horrible. So he kind of has, like, a little bit of, a calm down arc. I feel like that could be a good way to describe Karsa. He has a calm down arc. He starts out with, like, a 10. He could come down to, like, a 7, okay? You could have all the combat you want, but we need to bring it down a little bit. We don't need to kill everybody in existence. And he gets there. And good for him. So that was like a huge moment. And so reading him, knowing it's Karsa, knowing how he got there, just remembering from my first reread, made his character a lot more palatable to me. Because I remember the first time, I'm like, dude, this guy's a nobody. He doesn't even have a name. Get out of here. Why are you spending so much time on him? I know why now. My eye has been opened to why that is the case. The other big thing, or small thing, that I thought was cool was Bodden has a conversation with Felice, and she's like, what are you, sworn to Hood or something? Like why are you so, like, I think she used it as an insult. It's like, why are you so lame or something? And he's like, no. But he eventually is. He becomes like the I don't even know what he is. He's not the first sword of Hood, right? But he comes back, he's a servant of Hood, so it's just like a little thrown in there. It's like Erickson's definitely like, oh, this is going to be funny in a couple of years. But I actually made my voice hoarse by doing that, so I hope it was worth the joke. I just thought that was interesting, because he does become a servant of Hood. Pretty cool if you ask me. Just in general, though, this might be a hot take, Bodden is criminally underused. Because even when he comes back as like this Hood servant, he like loses his personality, he doesn't do anything interesting, he doesn't even interact with any of the characters he interacted with in this book. It's like, dude, we learn he's a part of this super cool organization, the Talon, and then we hear nothing of them the rest of the entire series. I'm praying that Esselmont delves into the Talon. Please tell me that is the case. Don't give me specific spoilers. I haven't read those books yet, guys. But tell me the Talon is used more efficiently than Erickson does. He's like, oh, it's the Talon, super secret. Oh, Bodden's dead. He never comes back again, except as a weird ghost of the Servant of Death. All right, man. It's your prerogative. Listen, it's not good that we're already only 8 minutes into this video. I'm already like getting off on weird tangents. It's because I just filmed the other video before that. And if you watch that video, I said I was going to do that. And I thought it was a good idea. And now I'm just talking with it. I'm all over the place. But we're gonna get it done. Sorry for the jump scare. I apologize. The other thing, we're introduced to a lot of new factions / characters in this book. The nameless ones. We know that like they feel guilty about Karium for some reason. Did they have something to do with it? I genuinely don't remember. I know that they did. They framed him for the destruction of Mappo's village. That's revealed in this book. The nameless ones, I don't really get what they're about. I know later they like unleash a demon of like mass destruction, and like eventually like separates Mappo and Karium. I remember that. Nameless ones are weird, but they're introduced. The Tiste Idur are introduced. They are on the ship with the Salanda. There's the corpses of them, and we know that's Karsa who did some slaughtering earlier. So they're introduced, not even hinted at that they'll become major players in this story. Osric is name dropped. I don't think he was name dropped in the first book. And Kalor has a moment. He had some dialogue in Guardians of the Moon, but there's a moment where Kalam is like seeing the ruins of his old empire. And he's like, man, like Kalor is with Whiskey Jack right now? Someone's got to warn them. Thanks for not sending that message out, Kalam, because guess who dies by Kalor's own hand? I'm not looking forward to rereading that one. That was probably like top 10 most heartbreaking deaths of all time. Rest in peace. Then the other thing is Leoman. He's like very much emphasized as a man with no beliefs, which I think is foreshadowing his eventual like betrayal of like mankind in general when he just like lights the city on fire in some of the like in like the best book of the series, The Bone Hunters, great series. But then he just kind of like enters a portal and disappears. I think that's all up in Esselmont. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, because he also kind of just dips from the series, which is something that's frustrating, and I understand why people are frustrated by it. But it's also what makes Book of the Fallen so unique, is that everything not related to the crippled god and how it ends is dropped off. He doesn't care how big your character is, how important their plot is, how much time you spent with them. If Karsa Orlong's goal to end civilization doesn't have anything to do with the crippled god at the end, he's just getting out of the story. He's getting out of the way. If Liam and the Flails has nothing to do with saving the crippled god, he exits the story when he wants to, and it doesn't matter how many sisters of famous characters that he's taken with him. We're not talking about him again, which I respect, because that's very, very hard for me as a reader. But it makes perfect sense. Like, why would the crippled god care about Whiskey Jack's sister jumping into a portal with Liam and the Flails? He simply wouldn't, and he doesn't. That's jumping ahead a couple books, though. A few books, actually. We introduced to the Tri-Galley Trade Guild. They are in a lot of the stories. They're jumping in and out of portals, making deliveries. I think that's such a fun idea, too. And they're such a kooky bunch, and I love them. And then the narrative of the Chain of Dogs, how it's being warped by people like the Nobles and people like Malik Rel. Obviously, that's another driving force of the Bone Hunters book. I think it's interesting how much of this book comes back in the Bone Hunters and not even House of Chains, really. Like, obviously, House of Chains is the conclusion of like Felison's arc, but a lot of like the setup doesn't pay off until book 6, which is quite a while away. But I guess we do have half House of Chains as a prequel book, Midnight Tides is a prequel book, Memories of Ice is just another continent book. So that would be 3 half prequel, 5 is the Midnight Tides prequel. And yeah, so I guess it makes sense. We had a lot of prequels, which is why we don't get to pay off until book 6. But yep, the narrative obviously I both fell out the chair, gets turned against them, and that's why the Wiccans get like outlawed, and like comes the great moment of Tavor trying to save them, which like leads into the back half of the series. So it all starts there, and it makes it more interesting. I can't get there yet. I'm gonna save it for the end. The last thing I want to say is Fiddler, when he's talking to Shadowthorn at the end, he tells him like, oh, like, you're gonna go off and join the war or whatever, but you're gonna end up back at Smiley's one day. Not only does he end up back at Smiley's in the Bone Hunters when he makes his little song, but I'm pretty sure he ends the entire series outside of Smiley's doing a little fishing action. So it's very, very deep in the story, hinting, foreshadowing going on there. But going back to what I was talking about, the Chain of Dogs narrative, if you watch my weekly videos, you realize that like I stumbled upon the theme where I think I figured it out, where it's just like the theme of repeating history and breaking the cycle of time and history and stuff like that. And I talked about in my last video of part 4 is like Coltane was very much keyed into this idea of the importance of remembering things and learning from them, which is why he valued Duker so much. The fact that not happening because of Duker not being able to get the word out, him being killed and resurrected like on a different continent, causes so much issues like with the Wiccans and with them being like basically outlawed from the Empire, Tavor having to outlaw from the Empress. It all happens because of the thing exactly what Coltane was trying to prevent, which is just such great storytelling, because he emphasized the importance of Duker staying alive and the story being told. The fact that it didn't get told, it wasn't just like, oh man, we all forget. No, it's people are exiled from society, and everyone's lives get a lot worse, and a lot of innocent people die because of it. So it's real world dramatic consequences to this story not being able to be told in the way that it was originally supposed to be told, with like creating the narrative in the first place. But also this theme of not repeating the past, similar to the theme of Gardens of the Moon, right? We had the theme of unchaining. You had to unchain from things that are binding you. Obviously plays into the end game theme of unchaining the crippled god, freeing him, right? But the theme of Deadhouse Gates being not repeating the past adds on to that layer. So if it's, you have to unchain yourself from the things that are like torturing you or binding you to something, and you shouldn't repeat the past. You should learn from your mistakes of the past. It plays into the idea again that the crippled God, something that is chained, shouldn't be chained again, which happened in the past, and we should move forward and free him, and not do a rechaining when he starts lashing out and corrupting Burn. You shouldn't rechain him, recapture him. We have to learn from the past that didn't work and free him in the future. So it's again the themes. So far we're 2 for 2. The themes of the individual book are hinting at what should we do. So like, if this keeps building, you shouldn't be surprised that the crippled God needs to be freed and not chained. Even though, like, I feel like the first time I was reading them, like, oh, they're going to chain him again, they're going to capture him again, whatever. No. Unchaining, Guardians of the Moon, not repeating the past, Deadhouse Gates, learning from the past, Deadhouse Gates. The crippled God in general, there's not, like, the sneaky passage as there was in Guardians of the Moon. The biggest reference in it is when they're on the Solanda, like, Culp and Heberic and all of them, and the Solana Mass come in. And they keep calling Heberic a servant of the Chained One. And if you don't know, the crippled God is called the Chained One. I don't even know if they mentioned it in the Guardians of the Moon. They don't know if they phrased it that way. You'd be like, what? They're so confused. Why do they keep calling him that? Why do they keep calling him like? And Heberic's like, who's the Chained One? I'm not his servant. I'm just like a random dude. I'm just a dude, okay? But they keep calling him that because of his odoral hands, because he touched the jade statue. And really, Heberic is the greatest. Him as a character is just foreshadowing personified, right? Because we learned that the jade statues, we learned it's like a hand, it's like, oh, it's connected to the rest of the body. Oh, what a weird statue. It's not a statue, it's an alien that came from the sky. And it fell down. The jade statues are an alien thing. They're trying to come for their god, the crippled god. And they thought he was a servant of the Chained One because of this connection to the jade. And that's really the only connection we have that the crippled god will be a major player. It's just that he's connected to these jade statues in some way. And obviously that does pay off with Heberic's character more. He has a lot more to do with these jade statues. But I just thought it was interesting nugget there. Because the first time it was very like, oh, Krupp's reading a passage, the crippled god was chained. Okay, who gives a hoot? And this one's like, something weird's going on with Heberic, and the Talana Mass and ancient people think that he's a servant of the Chained One because of it. And I feel like this one is a little bit more like we should be ringing some alarm bells here about where the things are starting to go. That's all I got for this one. It was definitely a little bit more all over the place. But I think that those themes really build on top of each other well. The theme of like learning from your past. And the other thing is too, another big thing was Cotillion, right? I talked about in my last video how him and Shadowthrone seem a lot more compassionate. That they really want to like work to something. And Cotillion has a great line where he's talking to Apt and Panic, where he's like, you will not be helpless again. My goal in life is that people don't feel helpless, which not only plays to the series-wide theme of compassion, but also foreshadows like his greatest act of compassion, which is the slaying of the crippled god, the freeing and then the slaying, right? Because right now, who is more helpless than the crippled god? So it really gives you a hint that Shadowthrone and Cotillion are shaped up to be like the forefront of this movement to free and mercy kill the crippled god. Because Cotillion right now, his main goal is that people and creatures and gods don't feel helpless. And he's the fighter of he's the fighter for the helpless. So I thought that was a great line and really foreshadowed like his character growth there. Because I said in the last book, like Cotillion and Shadowthrone's actions in Guardians of the Moon had no indication that they were good guys at all or wanted to say the crippled god or anything like that. Not the case in this book. We get the sense that they are helpful. They do send help to people that need it, to the good people, the good guys. And Cotillion's mantra of he wants to help the helpless people plays directly into that. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video. I'm really enjoying making this series. Obviously, next month is Memories of Ice. We're going to keep on going. Thanks for sticking around.